This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geek, show number 291, recorded on January 5th, first time of the year, 2017. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy TV studio. We're in a very cold Bellevue, Nebraska. Kevin, you guys are, I think, probably equally as cold and maybe a little even more snow than us, right?
Snow's been a little light. We've had ice storm here over Christmas weekend, which has hung around, and it was -8 this morning, so
Yikes.
It's been cold.
Yikes. Yeah, I 6 was this morning, and we felt pretty bad. But I always think about you when I'm getting ready to complain about the cold weather. I always think, Kevin Schoonover has it worse than me. And then I just feel warm and drive to work. Of course, we post a show with world-class show notes each week out at theaverageguy.tv/live. I want to remind you, don't forget to use our new, I always say that. I need to take that out of the notes because it's not a new anymore. Use our mobile app, easy to get, easy to subscribe to. Just head out to homegadgetgeeks.com and you can download that for both iPhone and Android. Great way to listen on the road. Really the best way to listen on the road. It streams it really, really, really well. So if you're not going to be able to join us live on Thursday nights from your PC, you can join us live. It's audio only, but you can join us live from our app. Again, I want to thank LastPass for their sponsorship of that app and homegadgetgeeks.com. If you're interested in supporting Home Gadget Geeks, of course, we now have a Patreon link. It's available for you on the website. If you just head out there, look at the right-hand side toolbar, and you'll see it just the graphic says Patreon. Click on it, or you can head out to the averageguy.tv/support. $1 and $5 plans. Do it for a month. Continue to do it. We always appreciate your support. Kind of helps us keep the lights on, literally, here on Home Gadget Geeks, and we appreciate your support. And thanks for doing that. All right, well, Kevin Schoonover is back with us tonight. It's always great to have Kevin on. We always have a hardware-a-palooza. It seems like, Kevin, when we have you on, bring you in and talk about that. Welcome to Home Gadget Geeks.
Hey, glad to be back.
Good to have you. We talked a little bit about the weather, but you guys seem, after a while, you kind of get insulated to it, right? You don't, like -9, you think, oh my God, but we have that as we try to move people to Omaha from other parts of the country for work. And they always kind of lament about the weather. You just get used to it, right? You get kind of thick-skinned.
You do. I think you get used to it. And luckily around here, it seems like when it is in the single digits or negative single digits, the air is so dry it doesn't feel that cold. So as long as the wind stays down, it's a dry cold.
It's a dry cold. You get used to it, so it's very cool. Well, we're glad you're here with us tonight. We are in the midst, if you're listening to the recorded version of this, we're in the midst of CES, and of course, if you haven't ever been to a CES or you've never heard of CES, of course, it is the largest consumer electronics show ever, I think, in the world, maybe quite possibly. And it's just miles and miles and miles of gadgets and gear and stuff. Dave McCabe is out there. If you want to follow him, McCabe.io. He is on the ground as we speak. He and I used to partner on that, and I would broadcast it live here and interview, and we have a live stream going on. We quit that a couple years ago, as some of the big players were doing that as well. And then I think, Kevin, I'm not sure if there's the fervor around CES anymore like there used to be. It was 5 years ago. It was really cool to do that kind of stuff, and I think today change maybe I can just get our news from a few bloggers and maybe the main sites. Where are you following anything specifically for CES right now?
I think through Twitter I've been getting good coverage. I have quite a set of course the phone always rings whenever I start a podcast. I would dive for it, but I won't.
That's right. Let it ring. It's fine.
A lot of the computer vendors, so the likes of Samsung and such, and a lot of the motherboard guys, networking guys, have follow all them on Twitter, so I've been getting a lot of good feedback that way. A lot of them, kind of the things that I've been interested in, is following guys like Qualcomm, who are the semiconductor chip guys that are in most of your high performance, low power phones, tablets, devices. Qualcomm also is in most of the Wi-Fi products. So as we were joking around before the show, mesh Wi-Fi is hot, a hot ticket, and a lot of that is, majority of these guys are using the same chipsets from Qualcomm or Broadcom or one of the major chipset vendors of this technology. And to me, a lot of the magic is what they're wrapping around it, and the user interface, the apps, and the things that they tie to it. So, but the underlying thing is the semiconductor stuff is the enabling technology that brings this stuff out. So yeah, I've been following Dave and a lot of the other folks that are down there. I feel like I'm getting good coverage that way out of it. My secret side to this is just the fact that you go out to Google and type in top things at CES today, and that's probably one of your best spots to get all the cool stuff that happened at CES today.
Yeah, we were in pre-show. I was joking. There's a robot that will fold your laundry for you. You literally put your laundry in the bottom basket, walk away, and come back. And I don't know if it's a half an hour, an hour. It's not lightning fast, from what I understand. But it will fold your t-shirts and your and regular shirts and your undies and your pants for you. No socks is what they said in there. No socks, which would be interesting, because it'll only be a matter of time before machine learning. Because the hard part of folding socks is finding the one that's missing, right? And so it would have to pair them up, and I imagine that would take that's going to take a little bit of work. I would be particularly excited about that. You mentioned Qualcomm, and I want to get your opinion on this. Of course, those lower energy chips are going to make their way into Windows devices here end of the year, maybe first of next year, before we really see them. Windows is writing an ARM version that will, a kind of a second run at Windows RT that emulates some Win32 apps. We hear a lot about this on Windows Weekly, if you're one of those listeners. Kevin, what do you think as you think about now the PC market and Intel struggling really to kind of stay relevant, and Qualcomm coming along and really providing some low power chips? Could we see in the next 3 to 5 years kind of a cutover to ARM, where ARM gets powerful enough that for most people it runs the PC or it runs whatever they need it to run? Do you see that happening in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think we'll see it a couple of different ways. Is just as things march on with the Android camp and the Apple camp, and of course the Apple camp breaks into ARM on the tablets and phones and Intel on the PCs. But more and more we're finding people can get done what they need to get done on a regular basis on a tablet-like device, whether it's reading email or keeping up on your apps of choice. So yeah, I think the compute market is shifting from that point of view. And also, I guess the other thing I see is that there used to be such a love affair between Microsoft and Intel, and I just don't, I won't say it's that they don't, the love affair is over, but I don't necessarily that they view each other as required for their success, so to say. So, we keep hearing rumblings out of Microsoft revamping this idea of, well, hey, maybe we could do x86, 32-bit apps on top of ARM and have it be decent performance, or back to the unified app model. Well, you could do something there with don't call it RT, but you could bring back an OS like that. I don't know if they'll head down that route, but I think there's a lot of things that could happen from that point of view. And the compute structure out there continues to evolve and change.
Yeah, I get the feeling, for the average user, next 3 to 5 years, Android or iOS is enough, right? I mean, I think we're going to bring productivity apps to those platforms. How weird would that be that, the Apple platform would be the majority and the Windows platform would then become in that same space that the Apple platform, or that the Apple platform was in so long ago, and it was a niche player, and it was, you had very, very loyal fans to it who said, no, this is the best thing. I mean, the next update for Windows, right, is called the Creators Update. And here Microsoft's making a play at these artists and these creators, traditionally, which had been in the Apple space. And now, iOS has become the average guy OS for the most part, when we think about that. Even Mac, the Mac OS has dropped way off in usage as everybody has really moved on to the phone and iPad. Can you see a day when our compute devices for work, and this is where really the rubber meets the road, like in the enterprise, we can talk about consumers all day long, but do you see a spot where the enterprise starts switching over to productivity apps that are Android or iOS based?
No, I think you will see a lot of that. And I think that gets back to depending on, forever we talked in the enterprise about workloads and desktop PCs and virtual desktop and then mobile users and how you put all this stuff together. And, the trend that I see a lot more of these days is, do I really even need a PC? So I'm, whatever your position is in the company, do you actually do real computer work? Or is it data entry, order entry type of stuff? Is it going in and, I always looked at the days where you had to log in through a VPN on a PC and then log into the mainframe or the server environment and then go to an application. Well, now companies are writing apps for that, and they're Android apps, they're Apple apps, they're apps that are deliverable on their own. So yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot more from the point of view for what I would call traditional workers who sit in front of a computer all day. It's mostly web-based, browser-based, cloud-based, application routes. So yeah, I think that model is shifting a lot. That's it didn't really take off, but HP with that Chrome box and a few people building off the Chrome OS, and that's merging back in with Android now. They've got a strong push in the business community for that, just from the idea that you don't need this husky PC to do spreadsheets all day long.
Yeah, well, you don't need it until you need it, and I think that has been what's held a lot of people back, is we still have some workflows that where everyone's used to having max horsepower. They only use it 1% of the time is when they need the horsepower. But the problem is they get to that spot, and the traditional Atom processor based or low end processor based that have been Intel, those machines just don't work at that point, right? And it's slow and it's laggy and it doesn't show video well, and so everybody continues to well, okay, I need a Core i3 or I need a Core i5. I need a Windows-based PC, or they've moved just over to the Mac, right? They're doing it on the Mac side, but Qualcomm is really making a run at these very efficient mobile chips that will work for in these situations where that 1%, it even handles some of those 1% tasks,
right?
And I could easily, the PC I use at work, I could easily get away with a lower speed. I think I have a Core i5. I could easily get away with a lower, assuming that processor wouldn't choke, and that would always been the problem, right? The Atom processor would get to a point, and then it would just absolutely become unusable. When it did fail, it was a horrible failure, not just like it struggled for a minute and then recovered, right? It would just puke on you.
Yeah, and along those lines, I think these days, my Surface 3, it's not a Pro, just a regular old Surface 3 Atom-based product. That's my grab and go. That's OneNote for note-taking, browsing, email, simple data access type of stuff. And then I've got a fairly loaded down i5 system, which is my main PC for now. And like you say, majority of the things I do, I probably wouldn't need the performance I do, but I've been playing a lot more with CAD type of stuff and drawing, and even that's light enough you can do it on a few things. But when you need the performance there, like you said, you're going to fall down if somewhere along the way in the enterprise you slated that a group of employees did not need PCs, and then job role changed slightly and you rolled out some new application for them, and now none of them can do their job because the PC doesn't support what they need to do.
Yeah, and it doesn't take it doesn't take a user very long to discover, it seems like, how slow or laggy that's going to be when they get there, and then there's very little tolerance for it. It's like, oh no, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, I need to have these windows open or what have you. So, well, it'll be interesting to see. We'll have to follow that. I mean, there's a lot of architecture changes that have to take place for Windows to survive in that environment. We're all set on the Mac, on the iOS, and on the Android side. That can continue to grow. Those OSs are not ready for prime time. Like in the enterprise, you can't, you could not take Android into the enterprise. Now, I think iOS is getting pretty close, and I think there's quite a bit there where they're getting closer, and that does run well on those chips.
Yeah, yeah, it does, and they're probably farther down the line and probably better aligned with the enterprise end of the world as well. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how the compute aspect of things evolves over time here.
Well, a second ago you mentioned drawing, and one of the functions, one of the abilities that came, and where Microsoft is trying to separate itself, and it's really been trying to do this for 20 years, is to bring ink, right? To bring writing onto the screen. When we think about that, I think they finally, and I have a Surface Pro 3, with the pen tips they have, I think they finally have gotten it right. And with the anniversary update, we got a lot of improvements to the Windows Ink space, or in this case, I think they call it the Windows Ink workspace. Is that something you've been working on quite a bit lately?
I've been playing with it quite a bit because I've been helping a friend mark up things for him, and you can do good markup in Word, but sometimes it's just kind of that idea of grabbing a document and inking it up. So I just realized I was going to demo this, and I'm not exactly sure how to do that. So let's do the entire screen. We'll see if you can see my entire screen. You were screen sharing. Can you see my entire screen?
It's black at the moment. There we go. All
right.
Now I see me.
So if you see this little swoopy thing down in the corner, that is the Windows Ink workspace. And in Windows 10, if yours does not show that, just right click down on the bar at the bottom and go up and make sure Show Windows Ink workspace button is checked.
I think if it doesn't detect a touch screen on install, it shuts it off by default.
Yep. And that's and as part of the demo, I'm not on a touch screen, and so it's going to look ugly. When you pop this up, some of the things, a lot of folks like the sticky notes, traditional sticky note type of application. Sketchpad is just a big blank sheet of paper. You can draw on it as you like. Kids love it. But what I've been doing quite a bit with is, so what happened there, and can you still see what's up on my screen? I'm assuming.
Yeah,
so.
Go ahead and minimize me so you don't have to, we don't have to. That might help with the video.
I'm in the workspace now, so let's
okay. Go ahead. No, go ahead. It's fine.
So what happens is it somewhat takes like a snapshot of your desktop and brings that up in another window that you see here, and then you see the pens across the top. So I was just looking at a spec sheet earlier, and one of the things I've been doing for a friend is marking some of his drawings up. So you grab a pen and basically gives you traditional marking type of functions. You've got touch writing in there, so if you were on a touch screen, you can work with that. One of my wife's friends homeschools her kids, so she's done a lot with this, using their whiteboard. So they've got a fairly reasonable Windows tablet connected to their TV, and they can go through and basically she can do a lot of the things that traditionally would have required a much larger whiteboard. But the functionality is pretty good. So you can mark things up, you can draw things up, you can add things to them. Then when you go to save, you can button and save it as it comes up as a PNG file. And I meant to check and see if there are other choices there. I know there's been a lot of requests for PDF, but nothing there yet. So on a touch device seems to be really responsive. I played with it on my Surface 3, works really well. And you can so I've been using it mainly for that, for the touch-up factors. The post-it notes, the sticky notes seem to be, for a common area PC, like something you might have in the kitchen. That's a neat way to leave notes for others who are using the same computer. And kids, the big sketch pad is probably one of the hot items. And yes, I'm drawing with a mouse, so it never goes well. And I never
you were going
learned
to
how
put
to
a
draw.
mustache. I thought you were going to put a mustache on me for sure. I thought you had your opportunity frozen.
I did.
You could have easily made the. You still can't make the mustache mode there.
It's Minnesota nice. I was being overly kind.
on Saturday morning during Ask the Podcast Coach, we were talking about predictions for the next year, and they said I would have a beard. So you'd fit right in with them if you would have given me a mustache and beard. One of the areas, Kevin, I find that particularly handy on, because I do so much kind of pseudo tech support for our coaches, is that I like to, if I need to, and I'm trying to show them how to do something, that is the fastest way I have seen yet to be able to go to the screen, grab the screen and then just mark it up, save it, and send it to them. And there's a variety of different ways. Once you save it, there's some sharing options in there that allow you to share it different ways. And man, from a markup standpoint, it's just super fast to be able to get that. Hey, it's right here. Where is it? I can't find that. And you're like, it's, you copy, it's right here, and circle it. So I have found that with the workspace. I have not found the sticky notes as useful. I've been using sticky notes since Windows. I think the early days of Windows 7 had sticky notes in them, and I kind of carried that over to Windows 10. I keep one on my desktop kind of as a scratch pad, and I type into it. I don't have a touch screen at work, so I don't use it that way. There's some actually new functionality. Now, here's the problem. As I'm in the insider, as a Windows insider, I'm on the newest builds, and I can never remember what's available on the new builds and what's available on the old builds and some of those things. But there is some functionality in those sticky notes where if you set a reminder and it senses that as a time feature, it'll automatically create some links and do some other things along those lines. So they're getting some really good productivity gains when we think about inside those sticky notes, because a lot of people, that's what they were using them for, make sure I'm here at 4:00 or some of those kinds of things, and it will set reminders for you that way.
And I think that I agree with you. I've used them a little bit. Probably the best place I've found is that common area computer that my wife and daughter also use, and it's a handy way to leave quick notes that way. And but also obviously we're bombarded with email and texting and messaging and lots of other ways of doing it. So just kind of one more of those open choices. But I do think for education and any multiple education routes, whether it's school or business education or learning, I think there's going to be a lot of homes and a lot of fits for this, because that's whiteboarding is one of the biggest things we do in the tech world these days, and that idea of having a PDF open in front of, or a PowerPoint open in front of you, and being able to ink it up and have people ask questions and being able to expound upon it and then capture that and give it to them is very powerful. So I do think that one's going to take off.
You've by now you've seen the Surface Studio and the new dial that comes along with it when we think about inking and some of the capabilities. Have you looked at that at all yet? Is that something that you think, because you're doing more and more inking, something that you'll want to use more? Have you taken a peek at it yet?
I played with it at the Microsoft store. My first thing was I just fell into I'm not a graphic arts guy, so I was instantly feeling like it was beyond me. But I mentioned that to one of the people that works there, and they kind of went down the route of using the dial for the non-graphic arts type of person, and they had some good points there. So I recommend to folks, if you're heading by a Microsoft store, pop in, have a look at it, have them do a demo for you, and flat out ask the question of, well, how does this look like for somebody who's not a graphic arts person? I think, back to some of the CAD and some of the drawing stuff, I think there's going to be some interesting things that will come from that as well.
Have you been, so in the role that you're in now, you've said CAD a couple times. So has that become, has that become more and more important to you in the work that you're doing?
Around home here for projects and that, I think what it rolls into is I've done, so the ever popular Schoondoggy bracket I built was I did that in Visio, because Visio is really easy to do two-dimensional types of things, and the bracket I can lay out in a fashion. And I was lucky enough to find a sheet metal guy who could put up with my horrendous CAD CAM capabilities and not blow up about it. And it looks good from a 2D point of view. When I got my little 3D printer, then I realized I wanted to print 3D stuff, and I quickly come to find that I'm not a very good 3D drawing type of guy. So I struggled a bit there. The one of the ones that popped up that I want to have be successful is FreeCAD, and FreeCAD is got some traditional drawing patterns with it, but also has some functionality of being able to sketch an item and have it pop up in as a drawing. The one that I've used, I think I posted for the group in the past, is one called Tinkercad, and once again, I don't have a good comparison on these things, but what I do tend to find is Tinkercad seems to work well for me. So let me see if I can share my screen here. And actually done by the AutoCAD folks, and just very simple. You've got your design area. You can pop back to Tinkercad home base here. So some of my recent attempts at drawings, it's really a matter of just dragging boxes over and sizing them. It's probably one of the easiest products I've seen for sizing devices. Just dragging something over. You want to put a hole in something, you scroll down, grab a round hole or a square hole, move it onto your drawing, size it, lay it in where you want it to be. You save your drawings by zooming in and out, or you save your drawing, easy zoom in and out mode. And for a web-based tool, it really responds pretty rapidly from a touch and a function point of view. And once you have your design where you want it, you can download it for 3D printing. But as my daughter had noticed, there's a download for Minecraft as well. So for folks who like to code and do mods in Minecraft, they're aiming at that world also. So I've come up with this is a little drive bracket I was working on to handle SATA drives, the 1.8 inch SSDs, and be able to mount them in a certain enclosure I've been working on. So I've been playing with that, and this was just a reasonably easy way for me to make some designs that are, and most of my stuff is fairly boxy, because boxy is easy, and pop them on my little 3D printer and make copies of them.
And then do you use those, I assume once you get the 3D printed version of it the way you like it, if you wanted that in a metal material, you could pass that CAD drawing on to a fabricator and they could fabricate it for you?
Yes. So there's a couple of things I've been experimenting with there. These kind of things I'm looking at just from the point of view as giveaways. But for some of the other server brackets and things that I've been contemplating, I am using this as like a prototyping tool to be able to look at what what I could do off a prototype design, and then if it works out and everything looks good, take it in and see if somebody could make it out of sheet metal for a better production price. 3D printing is not very expensive. It's pretty affordable, but it also is it's the kind of thing that if you're going to do any kind of production volume, it can get quickly.
Yeah, it's pretty slow, right?
Yeah. It takes time. You need a lot of machines to crank out good production volume.
Kevin, what'd you end up from a 3D printer? And, I thought by now those would be being made by HP or Canon or those guys. And they're really not. I mean, it still is a weird market where it seems like the only way to get the best 3D printer is through a kit. But what did you buy? What are you using for a 3D printer?
Oh, it's embarrassing. I can never remember the name of it. I want to say it's Micro 3D. It was a Woot special last Christmas time. And it's been, geez, I don't even remember what I paid for it. It seems like it was like $199 or something like that. It was a blowout, real inexpensive. And it's been good. I've had no problems with it. The issues I had to start with are the issues everybody has of putting the right, somewhat sticky material down on the platen to hold your starts laying out your drawing on top of it. It starts to slide around a little bit, so you have to get the right amount of stick down on the flat surface that you're printing on. And so yeah, they've been they've been coming along a long ways. Still very slow, like you say, but for prototyping things, playing with stuff, I know in 6th grade now, and in their science class they've got a little fabrication area where they come up with little projects and print them out over there.
Are you do they have different color plastics for the printing?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much every color of the rainbow, it seems like these days. The thing I always have to do a little research on is the different materials that the printers print with. Certain things are better for certain applications. So I think the nylon stuff is what I've been using lately, but that's one where I always have to go back and do a little bit of work to figure out what's the right thing to use as a material depending on what you're going to build.
And
a little more rigid than others.
And like that bracket that you showed, what would be a print time, do you think, to get that bracket?
That one takes, I've got it a little too thick right now. That takes about 2 hours to print the whole thing.
It's not too bad. It's just 3D printing is just not, it didn't take off like I thought it would. I thought we would see more people doing it, and it just didn't. I mean, the average guy just did not embrace 3D printing at all. It became a very nerdy, geeky thing, right?
It did, and I think I think early on when the printers were coming together, a couple of the guys from your group who live up in the Twin Cities area here were like, hey, geez, one of us should buy one so the rest of us can use it. And I still think some of the places, my local Micro Center store over in St. Louis Park over here, they've got one set up. You can buy time on it to print stuff. So I think that's happening a bit more and more. But unless you're doing a lot of different things, it's kind of tough to justify the overall cost. So
yeah, I think that's been it. It's still pretty expensive, and they don't get you with printer ink like they can, still on the printers, where they're gonna give away the printers for the most part, and then they're gonna get you, they're gonna make the money back. The spools don't seem to be priced that way. They seem to be fairly reasonably priced, and so I think you're actually paying the hardware price when you're buying these things, and they've been pretty expensive to this date. So it's every time I think I'm going to get one, and then I kind of go, oh, what would I print? Like, right. It just doesn't. I did see a cement version one, it was a big, they would put cement in it, and it could 3D print walls, and it would go around real slow. And I thought that was an actually great application, right? Scaled up to it. If you can make that, that'd be a really efficient way to print some of those things in that way. And I think really it'll get more handy when we can print proteins, and when we can print, some of those kinds of things beyond just plastic. I think it gets pretty handy. Hey, you had mentioned, you'd also mentioned in the show notes that, first of all, which digital assistant have you landed on? Are you a Amazon guy? Have you gone Google? Are you using Cortana? What are you using?
Cortana's been my main one so far. I just never jumped on Amazon Echo or Google. Kind of waiting to see how things play out. So I obviously with all the Windows stuff I have Cortana readily available. So that's what I've been using a lot of.
What have you like what are you finding? Like I'm kind of, I just built a new rig for myself. It's a little mini PC, and I put a camera on it, and I'm using the microphone off the camera. And I'm trying to, because you have to teach yourself really to understand what these things can do. And one of the main things I want to do is I want to come down in the morning before I leave and say, hey Cortana, what's the quickest route for me to get to work? And then it will run its query and show me a map. That's kind of one of my ways. What are you finding from Cortana still? What are you finding useful?
So the kind of a fixed function right now. So one of the apps that I've really been enjoying and has helped the family out a lot is an app called Wunderlist. And for a long period of time, I still love OneNote. Works out well for me. Okay, every time I want to go to share a desktop, it doesn't show me what I want. I'll keep talking while I
there's
try
a
and
new
get
tab in there, by the way. So when you're sharing desktop, or when you're sharing in Google Hangouts, there's two tabs. There's screens, and then on the next tab over, it will be specific applications.
Yeah, I popped into that, but it's not showing one of the applications I have open. Well, I guess we'll
talk it through.
We'll do the entire screen, and I'll make it big.
Go. That'll work.
So yeah, so for years, so it was always Evernote versus OneNote, and I always had sync problems with Evernote, and I didn't like it. And OneNote, I always loved, had great luck with it, but it's great for note taking, not for making lists.
It's not a great list maker. Yeah.
Right. And even though you can do checkbox on it and you can share with each other. So I stumbled into this Wunderlist, and it's available for PCs. You're seeing it on a desktop PC, Windows 10 right now. And runs on Windows Phone, Windows tablets, Android, Apple, pretty much everything. And it syncs between all those. And there was an announcement here probably a month or so ago that Wunderlist had Cortana integration built in the latest builds. And that's what got me interested. I've always had a kitchen PC. I've gone from kind of a full-size 20-inch all-in-one, and have taken that back to a smaller tablet that folds out from underneath the counter, and working on that right now. And really, Jim, it's a lot. One of my main use cases with Cortana is been doing a lot of cooking lately, and telling it what to order up for groceries or what I need in the house. So hopefully you see my grocery list right now. And as demos always fail when we try them, I'm holding my phone up in front of me, and I'm going to tell Cortana to add something to my grocery list. So we'll give it a shot. Cortana, add ham to my grocery list. It is.
There it goes.
And what pops up on my Windows phone is the same list, and it kind of ends up in two places. There's Wunderlist on my phone, but also Cortana keeps its own set of lists, so it sees those are all synced together. Now, the other side of the list function here in Wunderlist is by clicking on an item, it also brings up, you can assign, so it's task oriented, more for, if I went over to my to-do list here, it's very task oriented. I can set a date and a reminder. I can put in a sub-task underneath this, so you can build out a list of tasks underneath. You can add notes to that. You can add files to it. So it is a nice to-do list item. It's a nice grocery shopping list kind of thing. The integration seems to be very good so far. So that's one of the bigger spots I've been using Cortana with. The thing I want to play with more is I'm kind of redoing a lot of my SmartThings integration, and there's a little bit of stuff going on with Cortana there. Obviously, Amazon's really kind of been leading the way with the integration between home automation and voice actuation that way. But that's probably my next thing to tackle, is to see what I can do by way of some of the smart home items with Cortana.
Well, of course, the list functionality with the Amazon devices comes standard, so you can we've been creating our shopping list. That's a great. I mean, that by itself is a great. We can one of the nice things, anybody can come in the kitchen. This is interesting though. It gets me thinking. Because of you, I built a kitchen PC as well, so a 24-inch touchscreen on the wall, which we really love, being run by Kangaroo PC, kind of buried back behind it, and actually double-sided Velcro taped to the wall, which is kind of cool. Hide all the wires up in there as well. It's kind of fun. We have a shared calendar on there that we all use. You can send. It's got its own email address, so you can send events to it if you want to do it that way, or just come up to it and put the event in. But I need to get a microphone on that thing so that we can allow Cortana say, hey, set a reminder or add this to the calendar. It would work great in that setting. I'm not sure now that Sarah is using the Amazon lists so effectively. I'm not sure I'd make the change, Kevin, to be honest with you. It's one of those, it's like, gosh, there is some great functionality in this. And I've always struggled with list making electronically anyway. And from a personal standpoint, this might be something nice for me to try to get all my work and personal lists in one place. And then I could sync it with Cortana here. Is there an Amazon, do you know if there's an Amazon skill for Wunderlist as well, where it'll add to the Wunderlist? Have you seen anything like that?
I've not looked at that. It wouldn't surprise me if they had it. Their integration seems to be pretty good. But and Jim, I couldn't agree more. If you've got something that's working, I would not upset the apple cart to try this.
Yeah. Oh, we just got this thing right. Do not change it on me.
But yeah, I think anything, if people are still looking for a tool or an environment or a way to work within that, I was just very pleased at how easy that was to come together. And the way I came at it was coming out of OneNote, which OneNote's a very powerful tool, but it's way overkill for lists and things like this. So made Christmas shopping a lot easier too. We won't click on my holiday tab, but it was an easy way for my wife and I to actually separate in stores and be able to see each other checking off things as we were running through and taking care of holiday shopping. So that worked out very well.
Yeah. We did a shared Google Doc or a sheet, right, for them, where each person has its own column, and we all shared that. And that we've done that for a couple of years now, and that's worked out really well. To everybody makes their own lists that way. Now, one of the things we could do a better job of is maybe anonymously checking them off or something, so you kind of know, like, hey, has this been bought yet? Type deal. But that's worked for us. What was the voice command again? So if I wanted to add to my Wunderlist from Cortana, what's the voice command to make that happen? What do you say?
One of the first things the first thing you have to do when you load up Wunderlist is get the two to link with each other. There's just a little process to do that. Otherwise, once it learns what I then went into Wunderlist and created my different lists, shopping list, to-do list, and a grocery list are the main three. And all I end up doing is doing the hey Cortana to wake it up and just say add ham to my grocery list, or add whatever to my shopping list, and
so Wunderlist becomes the default lists at that point for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So Wunderlist kicks in there as default lists. And I think the thing I've been pleasantly surprised with is Cortana understands my Minnesota accent quite well. Doesn't seem to mess up on finding things. So been very, very impressed with that.
Have you seen that video with the two Scottish guys, and they go into the elevator that's voice activated, and they're trying to get it? That's when you said your Minnesota accent. That one of the things that's interesting. So when we think about the Amazon devices, you can, and I haven't checked out some of the newest skills, so I don't know for sure, but that's not necessarily like, so on my phone there's no Amazon app that I can speak into on my phone to do it that way as having an iPhone, right?
Mhm.
And I can do some of the Google Now stuff, but that's kind of restricted. I don't really have that running. I don't have the Google stuff running here. But with downloading Cortana onto my iPhone, I now have voice both at my desk and on my phone, unified commands, and I could use, I mean, this is where I could use a Wunderlist to have work lists, home lists. I wouldn't do groceries. We already do that on something else, but that could become that unified list maker for me across those platforms.
Mhm.
And because Microsoft has done such a nice job of cross-platforming everything, it would be available on any device: Android, iPhone, Windows Phone, PC, Mac. It works on all of them, and that
Right.
may be an interesting, have that thing turned on. I do not have that turned on my iPhone. I'd have to invoke it, but it'd just be a matter of turning it on, find the Cortana app, talking in, hey, add this thing to my work list.
Right.
So maybe I'll give that a try.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's, and I think, oh man, I just spaced his name. It'll come. Kyle was mentioning using Wunderlist at work. I think he's doing IT work at a school now, as his route for tracking his to-dos for projects and things. And yeah, I can see that being sort of a great poor person's help desk tool. Almost a ticketing kind of thing of you'd be able to pop things into this from a listing point of view, assign them to people, assign times to them, add. I'm looking at it more from a home use point of view, family function. But I think there are some probably deeper applications for it, and there's a pro version as well for businesses. I did bring up, it looks like there were some changes to the API to work between Amazon Echo and Wunderlist, as I would expect. IFTTT is got all kinds of things going back and forth between Wunderlist and Echo. So,
But it would still require, it's a skill, and so it'd require these very special language to get that
yeah,
done. That's been a little frustrating with those
yep,
devices. They'll get more native. Cortana has, from what I've seen, from what you just did, has by far the easiest voice activation to a list in a native sense. Like, you get that native functionality on Amazon to their lists, but
right.
those aren't that portable, right? You got to open your phone. I think maybe I could get to them on the web, but I can only speak them in from an Amazon device,
Right.
right? So I'm a little limited there.
See, and and when you mentioned Cortana, I think one of the things that popped me over a little over the top on Cortana is I've been popping back and forth between a Windows phone and I had one of the earlier versions of the One Plus phones. I had the One Plus One, the original, and that was running Cyanogen Mod. Rest in peace, Cyanogen Mod. You died way before your time. But they had Cortana up and running on that, and it worked great. So Cortana on my Windows devices, Cortana on that Cyanogen Mod phone, worked phenomenally well. And in some ways, they're probably in for some tough sledding. But back to this idea of Microsoft offering up their apps, and Microsoft having some of the better apps on Android and Apple. I can see Cortana for a lot of folks just kind of being the easy route to get you to a standard voice um, that links into these other applications and devices, whereas Apple's world and Android's world are going to try to silo up on their own. As difficult as it is to believe, or Microsoft is kind of the cross-platform guy these days, probably more than ever.
It's a weird world we live in, isn't it? From that standpoint, well, from a studio perspective, I've got the Echo down here now, and we've messed with that on the show. We added Cortana in as well, so we did a little demo of that. I think that was in pre-show. We did it before the show, and just so you hear it, You can say, Cortana, play a song, or hey, Cortana, play a song for me. Let's see if we can. You know, that never works when I'm in front of the mic. So let me try this. Hey, Cortana, play a song for me. And let's see.
Playing music.
Oh, so it actually opened Groove Music for me. And I probably won't play too much music, but if you want to, maybe I should not play that because it's copyrighted stuff. But there you go. So you can hear that on it open Groove. So I'm moving, as you see, I'm moving more and more. I guess I'm gonna have to get a Google Home too. So I've got all three sitting here. I really wish there was more integration. Now, I didn't have to use a Google Home for. Yeah. But that may be one of those that I pick up as well. What are you showing?
Jason in chat brought up a good point in being from Minnesota. I did have some of this for Christmas, so I need to see if Cortana will understand it. Add lutefisk to my grocery list.
Isn't it funny how there you go. Isn't it funny how we really talk differently? And one of the things I'm trying to get in the habit of is not talking to it like it's different, like just talking to it in a normal cadence. In fact, the Echo really struggles when I go Echo like that, you know, as opposed to just saying, you know, Echo, play my Boston playlist for me, you know, and that it'll
the playlist,
see
Boston and more.
And when I just do it that way, it shouldn't play Echo stop. So, you know, when I talk to it normally, and this is, you know, I've been messing with it on the show, and you're under a little pressure when you're doing this kind of stuff, right? Because you want the demo to work, and then you end up talking differently. But when I speak to it normally, and so I think that's been the key. It's like I'm trying to learn to speak to these things like I would ask a normal human being the question. Right. I think that's where they're optimized. Sometimes we talk to it like it's a deaf person, and that's that video of those Scottish guys, you know, they're screaming at the thing, and you're like, no, I think you should just talk to it.
It's all good.
You should just talk to it normal. Well, 2017 I think is the year of digital assistants, and I think we get really good functionality between now and the end of the year, don't you think?
I think it's going to come on a lot stronger. I think we started the show with talking about CES a little bit, and that is the other thing. A lot of announcements at CES about other vendors offering Amazon Echo functionality in their products or Google Home in their products. And, you know, we're starting to see some announcements around Harman Kardon speakers and Lenovo bringing out some products. So, you know, and I do think in a lot of ways, the embracing of these technologies by some of these other vendors is going to really help drive this stuff into the home.
Yeah, well, they're hitting all these appliances, and you know, the lightness of, you know, we have thought about having a computer and appliance for a long time, but a full version of Windows in an appliance is just a pretty big overkill, right? And so you end up throwing this Amazon software in there, which is pretty light on the front end. I mean, if it runs on a little Echo, or it runs on, you know, one of those cylinders, there's not a lot of horsepower in those things. I mean, obviously they figured out how to do it pretty light. Well, all of a sudden that footprint transfers pretty well to your fridge or to your oven or to fill in the blank from that standpoint. And you get this. I mean, I think the Echo and the fridge is the best combination of the two when we think about functionality of, hey, order this for me or add this to my shopping list, or, you know, some of those kinds of things. It gets really super handy. So I think out of CES, I think we'll see more and more where that was kind of a joke before. I think now it's actually pretty real. And of course, Amazon also has a full OS when we think, I mean, they made a mobile OS with Fire, and they're great at entertainment. So they got the mojo. They've got all the stuff to do it. Integrating those in or convincing you know, manufacturers to put that in those devices. I think this is the year they've actually started doing it. We're seeing a ton of that at CES.
Yeah, I think this is going to be where people start, you know, kind of understanding what kind of what the the best point of process is. So Samsung yet again brought back the $5,000 refrigerator with the huge touchscreen on the front and the multitude of sensors inside, and my refrigerator is a mess to start with, and I'm somewhat enamored with this idea of shopping or recipes and understanding what you actually have in your home from a stock point of view, or food stuffs point of view. But I think most of us work from a consumption point of view of, well, what did I just use and how do I get that on the shopping list? My apologies for being very shopping list centric on this show, but
that's good. It's that time of year, right? We have new resolutions. We're trying to be smarter about the things we buy. So I think it's very applicable.
So the one that I saw just on the news here before I came up was kind of a different angle on this that I think is very good, is Genican. These guys came up with basically a barcode reader to put in your garbage can. So as you're going to throw something away, you just used all the ketchup, and you go to throw it away. This reads the barcode. You would over any barcode reader, and it ties into your list. So I haven't had time to research this. It just looked like a cool idea. Yep, $125 is probably a lot for something that sits in your garbage can, but I like this idea of, instead of a $5,000 refrigerator with this intelligence to tell you how many, eggs you have left in a carton, what if I could just scan the egg carton as I'm throwing it away, and that would add it to my shopping list?
Right on. And with Amazon Instant Delivery in a lot of places,
this Amazon Dash replenishment is supported by this Genicam device. And so, I think a lot of this is coming together from a very heavy ease of use kind of functionality. So
yeah, no, good stuff. But you're right. I mean, you made a great business case for it there. 5,000 versus 100. You look at it, you're like 130. Oh my God. Like, seriously? And then you're like, oh, well, wait a minute. It replaces a $5,000 refrigerator that, may or may not work. And this is getting, maybe getting the problem to the right point instead of it being in the fridge where, you think cold and temperature and multiple sensors. This is as simple as, hey, did you run out? I mean,
yep.
Hey, okay, is it gone? And, and again, maybe years ago where you would have to go to the store to get it. In a lot of markets, especially here in the United States, in a lot of markets, I can have that nearly same day through grocery delivery from Amazon. And look, if you have to be out of sour cream for 24 hours and that's a problem, maybe your schedule's a little too tight, right? From that standpoint. Sour cream.
Live without sour cream.
I gotta have my sour cream. Hey, just wait for it tomorrow. It'll show up. So one of those interesting things. Kevin, wouldn't be a show if we didn't talk about some kind of antivirus or some kind of tool. When we think about, we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago, but Malwarebytes has certainly been the leader for us. And when we think about malware protection, they've recently, I don't know if you followed this, they've recently upgraded to both now malware and antivirus.
Yes.
And so those are available. Have you followed that? Or you think, is it legit? Can I make one purchase now with them and kind of have both solutions?
That's a great topic. I wish I had an answer. I'm in the my yearly upgrade of my yearly fee for my pay for antivirus is coming up shortly, and that's kind of the process I'm in right now. I think it was the last show you and Christian did, drifted off into antivirus pretty heavily, and kind of this ongoing discussion between antivirus. Do you really need it? Malware, do you really need it? Everybody's adding, and I'm still very much in the camp that malware, and big fan of Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes has added, in addition to the antivirus functionality, they've dug in pretty heavily with anti-exploits. So I noticed that the pro version that I installed for my update versions of Malwarebytes, into when Office 365 comes up, I get a little note in the corner that, if I'm opening a file, it Malwarebytes is scanning it for exploits. And it's added some extra stuff to my browsing capabilities as well. So, that's a great question. I'm probably in the camp of see if life is okay with just running off from Malwarebytes now that it's showing that it's proposed to be a full product across the board. And I kind of think they had to do that because my other good friend website, AV Tests, is showing that most of the AV guys are starting to throw malware functionality in. So Bitdefender and Avira. And I think I threw this in the show notes as well. AV Test, probably one of the best places to go. Pick out whether you're a home user, a Mac, a home user, or a business user, and pick your OS over on the side. You can go back to across the top, Windows 8, Windows 7, all the way back to Windows XP. And they have their top picks. And that have top picks also have free versions, but the usual suspects are here: Avira, Bitdefender, Kaspersky, Quick Heal. I haven't played with it all, but Trend is back in the hunt there as being some of the top products out there. I do think it bears to note that Microsoft Defender is not doing well these days as far as protection goes. Probably one of the worst out there, but I'm still a fan of the McAfee suite, and they've done very well over time here. And I know several people are probably screaming and hollering about McAfee. That's why it's called Intel Security now. I think things are heating up from the point of view that the average person is not seeing that much problem from traditional viruses. It's more malware, and small businesses are getting ravaged by ransomware. And I noticed, and I haven't seen really how they're doing this, but I think it's part of their anti-exploit functionality. They're really digging into trying to be able to pick up ransomware attacks before you get in trouble. So whether it's scanning that email message coming in or scanning the website you're heading to or on, they're really trying to give some added protection for people all the way around that functionality.
Yeah, and I'm a Bitdefender guy. That's kind of where I've landed, and they've got some functionality I can turn on that kind of checks the sites in advance, right? So you can kind of see when I'm in a web page before I click on it. There's a little green check mark that says, "Yeah, you want to do this." I'm open, and we talked about this on Cyber Frontiers too. OpenDNS is kind of something I put on the router here. Just everybody kind of goes through OpenDNS, which is now owned by Cisco. A recent change. Cisco bought that a year or so ago, maybe more. And it kind of gives you, again, that kind of reduces your security footprint some, attack surface, as Christian would say. It reduces your attack surface and gives me another level. I'm safe, but is my daughter being safe? And, is my wife being safe? And anti-phishing and anti-exploit and some of those kinds of things. It's very helpful. Hey, I saw when you were sharing your screen, I saw a Drobo with 5 4-terabyte drives in there. Is that is I seeing the right thing? You got a 5N or 5D? What do you got there?
5N. Let's hang on.
Bring that back up, man. That made me proud, Kevin. It's been a while since I've seen somebody else besides me throwing a Drobo out there. So
is there dollar signs in the chat room?
Hey, they're coming down. The new guys, the new guys are not. I've seen a bunch of deals out there, and not a bad time.
For somebody looking for direct attach, that 5C is very affordable. And so yeah, I've got a 5N. So the network product got 4 terabyte drives in it. I've put not a lot on it yet. I'm kind of taking the time to rearrange my data, my information, and get things moved over there. But very happy with it. I think a lot of, whether it's Drobo or Synology or any of the storage devices versus a little server running Windows or Linux or something like that, I just kind of hit this point at home of wanting 2 separate to separate those environments. So I wanted storage to be on a platform, and I've always liked Drobo, and just kind of wanted to give them another shot. I played with Synology and QNAP and some of those products, and you'd mentioned how they changed ownership a couple of times, and the app structure was very solid again. Some of the applications I was hosting, things like Minecraft servers for my daughter and I to play on, and certain other things that were server-based applications. I've got a smaller server running Hyper-V, not Windows Server, but just the straight flat out Hyper-V with a bunch of Windows and Linux virtual machines on it, and that's my application environment. So I basically have two things, but I kind of like it that way, because now my storage and my application environment are not dependent on each other, and it makes my life a bit easier. And
yeah,
background.
The Drobo is a champ with CrashPlan. Like,
yes,
there's a lot of complaints about CrashPlan on Windows, but running CrashPlan, so I have a single instance of CrashPlan, so I'm down to their lowest plan, and it's unlimited. So whatever that is, $40 a year, maybe not even that much, something like that. And one instance, and everything that gets saved goes onto the Drobo. Flip over to your capacity tab there real quick, and and show that. So, and then what kind of are you running? Green drives, red drives, blue drives, black drives? What do you got in there? What mass drives?
So I'm all of these drives are drives I bought off a friend of mine in the industry, and so we can start with where's my drive information. So the top drive, that is an Enterprise Western Digital. The next drive is a Enterprise WD. I think that's an Enterprise WD. That is, the last two are what they're calling their drives now, which are really the green drives, just in their latest format. So the top three are Enterprise drives, the bottom two are greens. And back before Christmas, I got an alert from the Drobo that one of my drives had failed. Popped out. It was an Enterprise drive that I'd had for many, many years, and it died. I popped it out, put in one of these greens to replace it, and it was back synced up, cleaned up, and ready to go in no time.
Yeah. Well, that's the functionality that I really like when it comes down to, it's, in my case with the Drobo, I've got mixed drives associated with it. So some 3s, some 2s, and a 1, I think, in there. And I'm getting pretty close to filling that thing up in its current status. I've got 2 drive redundancy on, so I could lose 2 drives out of the 5 and be okay and replace them. And that takes up a lot of space to do that. But when I need to upgrade, I'll pick up a 4 terabyte or maybe two 4 terabyte drives at the time, and just pull them out one at a time. And here, we'll switch over. Here, let me see if I can switch over to mine. I'll show a different configuration here. Let's give me a second to do that. If you're watching if you're listening to this, we apologize for that. Try to explain that as much as we can. That gives you a pretty big shot of the 5N there. And so 2 1 terabyte drives, all green, by the way. 3 terabyte, 2 3 terabyte drives, and a 2 terabyte drive. And so my plan is, with the capacity and those turned on, I got about 700. Now, by the way, I have 730 gig left. That's a lot of space, to be honest with you. I mean, filling up 730 gig is still a little bit of a task, right? And so I'm in no hurry, but for me, I'll just come back to the status tab, and I'll probably replace these 2 1 terabytes with 2 4 terabyte drives, which right now are pretty cheap, right? That's probably the sweet spot, 4 terabytes, you think?
Yeah. They've been well, under $100 all through Christmas time, and boy, I think I saw some 5 terabyte drives down around that $100 point. So yeah, they've been dropping pretty rapidly here.
Yeah, 4 or 5 terabyte drives, throw them in there. That would bump that capacity right up for me, and be back in business from a storage. So it's just so drop dead easy for me on these. And like I said, the app infrastructure is back with them. And so like Crash Plane's working real well. And I mean, it's a whole different world. And so it's, man, I cannot, and the pricing is getting good. I can't, it's hard for me not to say Drobo's back. It's
I
good
know
to have
they're doing very well, and one of the communities they're very focused on is the Apple community and the photography, graphic art kind of community. Um, they've got that little mini box that you could load up with 2.5-inch drives, load it up with SSDs, and have a really fast little device. Probably a better reason for SSDs is it's your mobile photo shoot. To it and sync it when you get back. But they've done very well, and the technology is really sound. There's been a bit of a question with some of these other devices of, if my Synology box dies, can I move these drives over to another Synology box? And generally that works, but there can be a few issues there. A little bit on Drobo before I got some data on it of moving. I had a 5D and just moving from a 5 USB based device to the network device time, but it picked up the drives and brought them right over. So
you bring them over in order. You just
Yep.
pull them out, and they've got a little migration thing online, or just, hey, I'm migrating from this device to this device. Pull the drive out, put it in, spin it up. And so that's been very, very cool. It's been a pleasure. I've been trying to get them on the podcast. I think they've been spinning up for CES. So I haven't gotten them. This is not the best time to ask tech companies for interviews, right?
Right.
They are.
It's pretty busy time.
Yeah, they're all at CES, but no, good to see you're having a good experience with it. I've been a long time Drobo fan, and it's just it just works for me, and it's been awesome to. They have a brand new iPhone app, iPhone only for the moment, but they have a brand new every picture. When you come in Wi-Fi range, automatically uploads it to your Drobo, and then of course I just back those up automatically to Crash Plan. So
Yep.
I don't have. It's one of those kinds of things. It's just I get a notice, hey, pictures are all backed up, and that's pretty cool.
Their remote access stuff is very good on it. There was a product. So for some people who wanted to do kind of their own cloud environment, Own Cloud was kind of a popular one to try out there. The Own Cloud app. So Own Cloud hasn't fared well from people adding it onto their existing servers. The Own Cloud app in Drobo seems to work pretty well. If somebody's looking to have that kind of app structure, it works good.
And I'm getting updates from them about as often as I get updates from Microsoft at this point. So it's pretty frequently. Pretty good to see them, doing their thing. So pretty cool. Well, Kevin, we're at our time limit, and I try to keep these at 1:20. But see how fast they go. We were mentioning during the show. You're like, hey, I scaled back my show notes because we always seem to have enough. It's always good to have you on. Always good to catch up with you. I know it's always great to have you. You've got this really eclectic group of things that we talk about, but you really bring some stuff in it for tonight. Just some really applicable as we think about the inking and the Cortana work that's there. We think about just 3D printing that we talked about. All that really average guy stuff in a lot of way. Nothing the average guy couldn't do from that standpoint, and storage here at the end, including a little chat about antivirus. So Kevin, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
There you go.
Great to have you on. Hang around for a few minutes. We'll do some post-show.
Sure.
I'll remind everyone, don't forget we have a Patreon link available for you. If you want to financially support the show, head out to theaverageguy.tv. Look for the link. It's right on the right-hand side. You can't miss it. Or just go to theaverageguy.tv/support. That'll get you there as well. $1 and $5 plans for now. I mentioned, I did stickers at one point. If you guys have something interesting that I could do, that we could do a little Patreon support with, maybe a little branding for the website, let me know. Jim at theaverageguy.tv. Shoot it to me over there on Twitter at @JCollison. Don't forget the averageguy.tv platform. Both the web and media hosting powered by Maple Grove Partners. And Christian just went through a massive upgrade at Maple Grove Partners. I mean, massive. It is lightning fast. And, of course, he and Gary do a bang-up job over there. And so we appreciate the work that they do. Really optimized for podcasting. But if you had a website, if you want to start something, actually Christian will do anything for you. So if you want, if you're looking for something, plan start is as inexpensive as $10 a month to be able to do that. Super fast, super high speed, really reliable, great stuff. And he's probably one of the smartest kids I know. Head over maplegrovepartners.com and get signed up. And if you have any questions, you can let me know or just contact Christian. He is very accessible from that standpoint. I want to thank Roger over at WLMN Radio for broadcasting this live terrestrial radio out of Grafton, West Virginia, and we appreciate that in the work that you do. Although I'm not sure, Kevin, he gives me an hour slot, and we always go an hour 20, so I don't think this part ever makes it actually on the podcast because I think we got off before that happens. But Roger, thanks for doing that as well. One more reminder, and I know, Kevin, I know you use this. Don't forget to use our mobile app, especially when you're traveling. Probably the best way to listen to Home Gadget Geeks. And Kevin, you've listened to us, right, through the app as you've been traveling, as you've been flying. You're not flying as much now, are you?
No, not as much. But the app works great, and seems to be a good way to follow up with the show.
Yeah, built by Spreaker, which is great, and then sponsored by LastPass. We appreciate their sponsorship of Home Gadget Geeks, and that's available for you for free. So head out to homegadgetgeeks.com to get that. And then don't forget about the newsletter. Again, during the holidays, I'm about once a month on that thing, but so I definitely won't spam you. But if you want to keep up with what's going on, head over to theaverageguy.tv/newsletter, and you can catch up on at least the most recent one I have out there. Loria Petrucci is going to join us next week, and of course she was Geek Brief. She was Callie Lewis before, and Geek Brief, Geek Beat, all those, and she's got some Geek Life. I think Geek's Life is what she's doing now. She'll come on and talk some gadgets with us next week, and so we're excited to have her. So that's what's coming up. So if you haven't caught a live show, that might be the one you want to catch live. I mean, this is awesome. Kevin, you were awesome. You rocked it tonight, but next week, if you want to come out and join us live, love to have a big crowd out here next week, Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. I do tweet. I have an auto tweet that goes out if you need a reminder of when the show is coming up. And then usually I try to tweet a few minutes before the show just to remind you to come out. Follow me at Jay Tullis. And we're live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv live. If you're listening in the chat room, stay around for the post show. And with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody.